Good morning, folks. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for attending the Big Data session. We're ready to kick this thing off with a really exciting keynote. This is from a company that's been a long-time supporter of TiEcon. We're very grateful for that. And equally or more importantly, we have a speaker who is very well versed with the whole topic of big data. And that is Mr. Boyd Davis. So Boyd is a vice president and general manager of the data center division at Intel, where he's responsible for delivering software and services that enable customers to take full advantage of Intel's data center services and solution architecture. His team supports OEMs, software partners, service providers, and select IT end users as well with software building blocks that enable efficient delivery of IT services. So prior to his current position, Boyd was GM of Data Center Infrastructure Group, also at Intel, where he was responsible for Intel's products and technologies used in data center infrastructure applications, including enterprise servers, storage, solutions, mission-critical computing, and small to medium business. He's also been GM and then served in a variety of very senior marketing roles at Intel. So he's a very accomplished and seasoned executive and has tremendous expertise in the big data space. Boyd received his bachelor's degree in EE in 1980 from Purdue University. Please join me in welcoming Boyd Davis of Intel.
Good morning. An Intel guy kicking off the big data section. So you guys are all ready for detailed charts with pin counts and buses and really get into the core of big data, which is obviously the chips, right? No, I'm a software guy. So at Intel, I run the data center software division. It's a great opportunity to talk to our colleagues in the field of big data. If I can make the clicker work. And I'd like to spend just the next few minutes with you talking about our point of view on big data, and very particularly the Hadoop framework, which we think of as a very foundational technology. When you start to think about big data, and you think about Intel, we really see a new virtuous cycle emerging. We've talked about virtuous cycles. I think Andy Grove's the first one that coined this notion that the hardware catches up, enabling richer and richer software, and then the software taxes the hardware, and we end up with this growth of this thing that we think of as the PC industry. And now, with the emergence of cloud computing and mobility, which are the other two tracks, we have a different kind of cycle emerging. And it's a very positive one for all of us. It's a cycle of very, very rich user experiences driven by mobile devices that are generating enormous amounts of data, and that data has an enormous amount of value for organizations of all types. And of course, the data itself allows the user experiences to be more intuitive, more personalized, more contextual, so the big data in turn drives those rich user experiences. So across the portfolio for our company, we're really being driven now by this cycle of very, very rich user experiences generating data, which in turn drive rich user experiences. Now, this is a tough audience to talk to about big data. Most of you are well versed in big data solutions of various types and building businesses around it. I've had some occasions over the last several weeks to start educating some people within our own organization at Intel about what big data is. And it's surprising about how much confusion there is. And I think it really comes down to the use of the term big data really meaning a lot of different things. One is the data itself. And one of the things that I was absolutely adamant about is I'm not going to come to this audience and show you a slide about how fast data is growing. Because I think everybody in our industry shows those slides all the time. And everybody knows we've got all this unstructured data, and the data itself is kind of the first step in the big data cycle. The second way of using big data is often the tools that go around it. That's what I'm excited about. We're a technology company. We're not really a solutions company. And with Moore's law driving processing power to incredible low levels of pricing, commodity hard drives, faster and faster networks, we're seeing the raw technology combined with a breakthrough set of tools, NoSQL databases and Hadoop among them, that are really allowing the harnessing of all that unstructured data. So we think about big data, and many of us in this room are really about the tools to handle big data. But ultimately, the thing that's exciting about big data is neither the data nor the tools, but obviously the insights that can be gained from the data, the new business models, the new capabilities, the positive impacts to society that harnessing all this big data generates. And when we think about those three things, the data, the tools, and the insights, it allows us to more crisply articulate why big data is so transformative and not just another buzzword. Big data right now is kind of where cloud computing was 3 or 4 years ago, and at that time, Intel took a very strong position that cloud computing was in fact transformative from an infrastructure perspective. You could argue that that was a necessary first step to harnessing the value of big data. And we've seen it in a lot of different ways. These are a couple of examples that Intel has been working on as we've entered the market with higher level solutions around software. We're doing things not just that are super exciting, like working with telcos to handle huge amounts of call data records and harness the value of those call data records to give better consumer experiences, and also to find new routes of growing and engagement with customers. But also in things like smart cities, which are really the next wave I don't think any of us have really gotten our handle around yet. Most of the time when we talk about big data, we're often talking about still human-generated data of some sort, web logs or video files or all these different kinds of human interactions. We obviously all now see the next wave of machine-generated data that we can finally get our hands wrapped around. And when we get the technology and the tools and the business processes and the skills to handle that machine-generated data, we're really going to see an unprecedented new wave of innovation that really has a potential to affect society in some very positive ways, handling energy better, protecting public safety. And then maybe the most exciting for me personally is this whole idea of using the power of the data and the tools to take healthcare to the next level, to get to a point where we can personalize the treatments for some of the world's most devastating diseases, because we finally have line of sight to being able to make human genomics cost affordable, make it pervasive, and finally get to the point where we can give the physicians in the medical industry the tools they need to stop just treating diseases in a very, what I think in just a few years we'll view as a very rudimentary approach that's one size fits all, to a new approach that's personalized. So we're all very excited about the opportunity. Now, the examples I had on the previous slide were all examples of customers that we've engaged with that use the Intel distribution for Apache Hadoop as a foundational technology. And I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about Hadoop. You can really see every wave of opinion in our industry on just what Hadoop is and what it will be. I think if we look at it pretty coldly and harshly today, Hadoop is used by a small minority of organizations, largely to do data storage and some ETL, and relatively simple work to organize data that's then put into some other tool to do the quote-unquote real work. And that's currently the state of the industry today. A lot of organizations are still thinking, Hadoop, I've heard about it, I gotta deploy it, but I have no idea why, because the line of business in their organization hasn't come forward with a business case to deploy a big data solution. And of course, you have a very, very large industry of some established players and some newer players that are bringing out other tools that are in some cases much more expensive, but much more capable to address specific needs. Intel believes very much that Hadoop will be the next platform for data inside enterprises of all sizes. Now, we in our industry use the term platform a lot. And in my old job, I used to talk about the Xeon platform. And when I talk about a Xeon platform, it's Xeon and the chipset, and it's something to build off of. And in fact, that is a platform. If you think of the fundamental nature of the name, the platform, it's any foundation to build off of. and you could have multiple layers of platforms within a given solution. So Xeon Platform is a platform. But we think of Hadoop as the next platform, and we say that very specifically because we do not view Hadoop as a solution. And in fact, Intel in our heritage is not a solution company. We're a technology company. But solutions are founded on technology. So we envision a future for the Hadoop framework that's open, that continues to mature, that gets more real time, more secure, and more capable in terms of the types of analysis that can go on top of it. And we think that the opportunity is to democratize the technology for big data to a level that is still outside of our grasp today, but within our reach if we start to think about how to advance the framework from a technology perspective. I highlighted, the potential for Hadoop. Well, what's holding it back today? Well, there's a couple of these. There's probably more on this list, and many of you, if we have a chance to chat later on at this event, I'd love to get your feedback on it. But clearly, security is a big issue. When you're talking about data, data has to be secure. It has to be anonymous in many cases. Real-time responsiveness, this kind of notion that insights can be gained, hours or weeks later than the events occur is simply not going to work. Complexity, the technology is pretty sophisticated stuff. The people that are harnessing value out of it have real computer scientists and data scientists on their staff, and there's simply not enough of those skills to go around for average everyday organization. And then maybe the toughest one, I sometimes think the world we all live in, everybody's adopting big data solutions and everybody's way down the path, and we all have our examples of how sophisticated users are thinking about how to extract business value out of data. But I had an occasion to talk to a group of very large enterprises recently that just weren't in this little bubble of hyper-fast innovation around big data. And it was striking to me just how many of them are still grappling with this issue of, I don't know what data to collect or why I'd collect it or what business insights I'd gain if I did collect it. So we still have a significant challenge on this path to business value. Now, all of these issues are much more easily addressed with vertically integrated, highly capable solutions. And in fact, in our industry, these highly integrated proprietary solutions have always and will always have a significant role to play in driving the capabilities forward. It's been more fashionable, I think, in the last few years to have these much more closed systems than in the years prior, where open systems really were the leading approach to building new business models. But Intel still believes that open will drive faster growth. And in fact, as we've entered the market for the Intel distribution of Hadoop, one of our goals is actually to grow the market faster. And this acceleration of the number of units of Xeon processors that will run Hadoop is the lower line is our current volume forecast. And it's a really steep forecast. We expect that the Hadoop framework, absent any participation or influence by Intel at all, would grow very, very rapidly. But the reality is, even with this growth of these tools and other proprietary tools and NoSQL databases, even with that huge growth in the deployment of all these tools, we are actually still throwing away more data every year as a percentage because the data is growing even faster. So if we could just stop throwing away the data and harness just a tiny fraction of it by making the tools easier, cheaper, and more capable, then we see an opportunity to pull in that growth and acceleration of the ramp of the underlying infrastructure a lot. And that makes Intel unique. We're in the software business to participate as a software company. That's my group. We have a number of software products, from power management solutions to the Lustre parallel file system to tokenization brokers for anonymizing data. We have a significant and growing software portfolio, and we intend to make a very healthy software business out of it. But in all cases, we're focused on either open source or open interfaces because our primary objective is to foster growth in the industry. And we think that is best done by modularity in the solutions. It's also part of our heritage. As I said before, Intel is more and more focused on solutions and user experiences, but at our core, we are not likely to be the company that delivers those solutions and user experiences. We're still the company that enables them. We're still the company that delivers the building blocks, the ingredients, the foundational platforms to foster that innovation. And that's the role we hope to play with you here in the audience today around the Hadoop framework. We are very, very committed to open source and advancing the agenda for Hadoop. We've done a significant number of enhancements that I'll cover in a second around the Hadoop framework, and we're contributing them back into the community and seeking to make the overall Hadoop framework, whichever distribution a customer chooses to use, is more and more capable so that we can drive that growth. We are building the Hadoop framework really from the silicon platform up. You know, we're taking advantage of instructions in the underlying silicon to accelerate encryption. We're taking advantage of non-volatile memory. We're taking advantage of faster networks and ultimately fabrics. The Hadoop framework is a relatively low-level system software just for bigger systems. The systems are, you know, multi-node clustered systems, but it's still low-level system software that's best optimized when you take advantage of the underlying hardware. And of course, we're doing this in projects like Rhino, which seeks to drive authentication and encryption throughout the Hadoop framework, and Panthera to get to a level of SQL access on top of Hadoop, all within the open source community. Now, we do have, and will continue to have, tools for provisioning and management that are kind of out of the data path to foster an ease of use around our distribution. But within the core framework that manages the data, we're passionate about open source. And you can see the roadmap for what we plan to deliver in our Hadoop distribution and contribute back to the community across a number of pillars. Security, we're driving encryption throughout the framework, driving cell-level protection in HBase. The management systems around it, we're looking to make it easier to deploy, more autonomic, more intelligent. Performance is huge. The ability to start to use solid-state disks and caching to get a balance of price and performance around memory on hard drives versus solid-state disks in a platform is a huge opportunity. And then, of course, all of the underlying capabilities we have in the platform. People tend to think of Hadoop as a relatively low-end workload, and I tend to think that's roughly analogous to saying Windows or Linux is a low-end workload. It matters only what you're going to do on top of the Hadoop framework. If you do really, really simple things, the easy things that offer the less value, then it's possible to use low-end infrastructure. But if you deliver balanced solutions between the hardware and software, taking full advantage of the capabilities of the commodity infrastructure and the full ability of Moore's Law, we have a chance to start to bring Hadoop into the world where it's much more real-time and much more sophisticated in terms of the algorithms. But it's not just us. As a matter of fact, it's not ever just us. It is always a foundational technology. And this is an example from one of our early partners, MarkLogic, who has a very robust semantic search capability that they've layered on top of our Hadoop distribution to deliver significant value. McGraw-Hill is one of MarkLogic's customers that took a business process that would take 5 days in every quarter and boiled it down to an hour on demand. And of course, we all have stories for all of the great solutions you guys are driving out there into the big data community about that level of orders of magnitude, breakthrough level of capability. And this is our vision. Our vision is to have a robust ecosystem of solutions that take advantage of our Hadoop platform and take advantage of Hadoop as an open, modular, flexible, versatile framework so that organizations can store their data in a Hadoop framework and then land multiple applications on it. We think that is the way to drive growth. And we're also pushing forward on different kinds of analytics. This is an example of graph analytics. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a different way of looking at data that really looks at the relationships between data sets, not necessarily the value of the data itself. And one of the challenges of using something like a Hadoop framework for graph analytics is that graphs are not near as, it's much more difficult to distribute them out to the parallelism that is intrinsic to the Hadoop framework. So Intel is actually building a tool called Graph Builder that works in conjunction with the MapReduce framework to much more efficiently take a set of data, build graphs out of the data using the parallelism of MapReduce, and then make those graphs available to higher level tools like the open source Graph Lab project. This is just one example of the different kinds of capabilities we're going to start to layer on top of Hadoop. So when we talk about Hadoop at Intel, it's the combination of the storage layer, which will continue to innovate. Maybe it's not HDFS forever. The data organization layer, which is today HBase, and I think we'll get more and more SQL-like, and the analytics layers, which will start with MapReduce but go much farther beyond MapReduce. It's not a start for us. We have been and emerged really as one of, if not the premier open source software companies on the planet. And I say that with all due respect to our close partners, people like Red Hat and others in the open source community. We've recently, for the most recent release of Linux, become the #1 contributor. Over the last few years, Red Hat and Intel have kind of both been the top 2 contributors. And beyond Linux, we're actively working to advance OpenStack, Apache web servers. I mentioned the Lustre parallel file system. The range of open source projects that Intel is working on is significant. We have over 10,000 software developers inside our company working around the world. We are, at our core, in many respects, an open source software company. The only recent change is that we're also bringing commercial offerings to market. So I mentioned solutions are where the value is created. And that's where most of you, I suspect, are building your businesses. But the best solutions are based on the best technology, and that's where we believe we can play a role. I'd like to ask you in closing to join us. Join us in a lot of different ways. You can come work for us. We'd love to have the best talent in the room, or send your best talent to us. That's fine. More likely, the solutions you're building could take advantage of our base technology, and we could allow you to deliver a better solution to market without burning your R&D on fundamental hardware capabilities that we have so much experience and heritage with. And you could also join us by working with you to, on the capital side. Tomorrow, I'd encourage you to come to Arvind Sadani, who runs Intel Capital, will be here, and talk to you about the opportunities to participate with Intel. We believe our Intel Capital portfolio companies are not just an opportunity to make money, but an opportunity to build this ecosystem, and we bring to you as Intel Capital portfolio companies not just investment, but also advice, partnership. I work a lot with our portfolio companies to help them grow their business. So we have a lot of different ways that you can join us in our goal to make big data grow faster, to make Hadoop a framework and a platform, to keep it open, and to drive growth for all of us. Thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.